It's not what my sister thinks. Hi guys, I'm Lisa Starr, and I'm so grateful to see each and every one of you. There's about 20 of you that I don't recognize, so make a point of introducing yourself by name during the break or afterwards. I'm honored to be the artistic director of the Arts Café Mystic. We are celebrating this is our 30th year, and this is our final event of the season. So this is a huge accomplishment, and while I'm mentioning that, I'd like to honor the members of my board, almost all of them who have been with the Arts Café Mystic since it started 30 years ago. So Christy Williams, who was the artistic director, you gotta stand up, sorry. I'm gonna do it to everybody. Stay standing. Julia Simpson, John Sutherland, Wendy Halsey's out at the door. Owen Hughes is right here. Is that everybody who's here tonight? No Thea, and no Charlie, and no Liz. And I also want to introduce the great Melanie Greenhouse, who was the executive director of the Arts Café Mystic when it first opened. So these guys, I'm so eloquent. My board, you know, they do all the work. They bake, they set up the chairs, they donate with their service, but also with their funds so that we can keep our doors open. I know I thank them all the time, but I just wish you'd join me again in thanking them. We're not going to do this later. We also want to thank the folks at the LaGrua Center. Marie, you were here years ago. Coleman's been here a few times. We were at the Mystic Museum of Art for many, many years. It stopped working for both sides, and LaGrua Center, it was like our dream that they would say yes, and they said yes, and they've made our work here and our stewardship here just so easy. And Dan already left for the evening, but he might watch this video in a month or so. But for Kelly and Dan, thank you. And lastly, two of my board members aren't here tonight. You know, it's interesting, and I think Marie's work is all about this, and of course so is Coleman's, but sometimes things are really hard, and sometimes things are really wonderful. And it's really hard when they happen at the same time. Like, how can there be so much bounty? Here we all are, like Coleman made it from Georgia. It's Marie, you know, but there's always grief close by. So two of my board members are not here tonight. Our last show was dedicated to Zell Stever, who was the husband of our board member Liz Raisbeck. Liz was hoping to be here tonight, and she fell and broke her hip a couple days ago. So we hold Liz in our thoughts and prayers. Another friend, Charlie Ewers, who was my creative writing teacher in 10th grade and published my first poem in his Inner Visions magazine. Charlie is so normal, but he really is a hippie. Inner Visions. Charlie had hoped to be here tonight. Charlie and his wife went through one of those almost unnameable griefs about 2.5 weeks ago and lost their adult son. So Charlie and Liz really hope to be here. They can't wait to see the video, but I think I speak for the whole board, this is the best of what we've got with our lineup and with each of you. So let's hold Charlie and Liz in our thoughts and prayers tonight, and take a second right now, you know, to think of somebody you know that might have liked to be here. And we're about to be treated to the most gorgeous gift of poetry and music. So I know you're all gonna ground yourselves and listen, but carry somebody else with you as we get going, okay? So thank you. Our first guest is an up-and-coming poet, born and raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Coleman Barks's work in the world really doesn't need an explanation. You can I don't know, Coleman, how many millions of books have you sold? Yeah, about that many. His Rumi translations have been translated into, I think, more than 50 different languages. I believe his translations of Rumi have made him the widest selling poet in the world. He's also a poet in his own right, and tonight we're going to get to hear a few of his own poems, and also some Rumi. And he's ready to go. So come on up here, sweetheart. Welcome, Coleman Burks.
First, a couple of poems of my own. This is called Purring, and I asked Ted if he could make the cello sound like a cat purring.
Who's this one dedicated to? Jewel Kitty.
Jewel Kitty, yes. Her cat, who's had a hard time recently with a dog barking at her. Let's hear that cat purring. The internet says science is not sure how cats purr. Probably a vibration of whole larynx, unlike what we do when we talk. Less likely a blood vessel moving across the chest wall. As a child, I tried to make every cat I met purr. Remember that? Yeah. That was one of the early miracles, the stroking to perfection. Here's something I've never heard. The feline purrs in two conditions: when deeply content and when mortally wounded, also in the giving birth. To calm themselves, readying for the death opening. The low frequency evidently helps to strengthen bones and heal damaged organs. Say poetry is a human purr, vessel mooring in the chest, a closed mouth refuge, the feel of a glide through dying. One winter morning, on a sunny chair, inside this only body, a far-off inboard motorboat sings, the empty room.
You're doing the railing next.
The railing. A child stood on his seat in a restaurant, holding to the railing of the chair back as though to address a courtroom. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. Then his turning slide back down to his food, relieved and proud to say the truth, as were we to hear it. He just stood up and said, nobody knows what's going to happen next.
You ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's see.
Christy, can you go grab me a napkin from the... Okay, now you got the final.
Oh, yeah. When you teach somewhere, as I did for 35, 40 years, they, when you retire, you they tell you to come to a forlorn room on the second floor. Oh, thank you. With a punch bowl and a table and some plastic cups, and they stand around and talk about your career. That's now over. That forlorn Thursday came and went, and then the real end of my career as a teacher happened to me. This is a prose poem about that. It's called The Final Final. I missed giving my final. I slept through it. The alarm didn't sound, or I turned it off in my sleep. I'm buying a new clock, but maybe it's perfect this way. They wrote me such letters, I'll give them all A's. I did. But for that moment will not come back, no matter how I howl, call for it to, weep. This morning will not come back this afternoon. But the letters I have from them are better than the finals they might have written, maybe not. This class really was the best I ever, and I regret, though this way really might be right. It hurts so missing the saying goodbye to each as they come up, my best, my last. Missing the saying goodbye to each. I did that last lecture class well enough a week ago Thursday. That was good, I guess. And they wouldn't have written what they did if I had been here today. Unconsciously, I gave them my absence. As these last 11 years, my teacher has consciously given me his absence, presence, whatever, however it is with me. Now he's dead. Problem is, while we're in these aging shapes, to show up for class. Bright eyes, bright ears, seemed like so much else in my life. The waking late and not making the formal gathering, and this regret for sleeping through. I cannot believe I missed the final. The predictable conclusion to my legend in the English department. The secretaries loved it. I can't believe it, and I won't say I'm sorry. I am sorry. Like my mother used to call unreliable hired help. You can't count on him. He's just sorry. You never know if he'll show up. I'm so sorry. I won't say I'm sorry. And actually it gives him a chance to get 40 A's, which are out of some arrogant, ungenerous grading attitude I would not have done, which now I do. With an iron whang with a grades only chute door in the back of the academic building and an illegal pull of the chapel bell. I did that, yeah. And two guys walking by. You don't ring that bell unless, we've beaten Alabama. Do you reckon I'll sleep through my death? Another pull. Sleep through Resurrection Day, another. and have to do this whole jabbering career again, pull? Or will I get to go to some other plane where there's no such thing as dreamless sleep and discipline and drinking too much the night before and faulty clocks and forgetfulness and the frustration of saying anything in front of groups, and no such thing as a regret and the satisfaction of a job well done, and no more ceremonial walk through doors, and no more to miss the living moments, and no way to try to write them right or say there's nothing after now. Then there's a lovely bunch of young people talking and laughing and waiting for me, writing letters, forgiving me even, straggling out of the room, made sacred by our presences and attention, were gone when I arrived at 10:45. You created quite a stir around here, someone says on the hall bench. I bet. I heard them say you used up your poetic license. This is how death might surprise as a thing undone. I irremediably missed out on you round a corner, and the backyard party with your friends is breaking up. Where have you been? Alone, asleep? If I lived with someone, I might have been jogged awake and reminded, but I still don't want to live with anyone. I'm unrepentantly, sufficiently, some would say, terribly alone. Look at me and be frightened of not pouring the last of the love and wakefulness you're given, which is every moment, that, but more so some than others. Emptying out is the point. In time, over time, be early.
Great. All right. Love dogs, right?
Yeah. Well, I think these pants are about to fall down.
Okay, we'll fix it. No one wants to see that.
Okay. There was a lot of laughter in Rumi's community. They liked the way.
Not yet.
Huh?
Not as.
Okay.
You're going to do this?
Okay. Do a few Rumi poems. One night, a man was crying, Allah, Allah. His lips grew sweet with the praising until a cynic said, so, I have heard you calling out, but have you ever gotten any response? The man had no answer for that. He quit praying and fell into a confused sleep where he dreamed he saw Hitter, the guide of souls in the thick green foliage. Why did you stop praising? Because I never heard anything back. The longing you express is the return message. The grief you cry out from draws you toward union. Your pure sadness that wants help is the secret cup. Listen to the moan of a dog for its master, That whining is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them. There are love dogs. At this point, I'd like to hear the names of dogs that you have had.
Francis.
Phoebe.
Bibby, Scudder, Brother, Malone, Appalachian. Oh, sweetie.
You're doing great.
You guessed that?
Yep.
Here's a poem that Chris Martin, the lead singer in Coldplay, likes. And he put it on an album. Yeah. It's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, for each has been sent. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Now, you get to tell a few jokes.
Okay. I like to tell stories about in Rumi's community about Nasruddin. He's a Middle Eastern trickster figure. Nasruddin has got his feet on the altar, and the priest comes in and says, Nasruddin, get your feet down from the altar. This is sacred space. And Nasruddin looked at him and said, where shall I put them? Nasruddin takes a tuna fish sandwich with him every day to work, and takes one bite and spits it out and throws the sandwich away. And says, Nasruddin, and one of his co-workers says, Nasruddin, why don't you tell your wife to fix a different kind of sandwich? Oh, see, it's not that simple. He said, I'm not married. I make these for myself. Oh, no, Nasruddin has been taken to a deserted jungle island, and he's deprived of all right. He has berries and fruits and small animals, and when finally a ship comes by and takes him away, and the captain, they're leaning against the railing and looking back at the island, said there were 3 structures on the beach. He said, what are those structures? Well, one on the left is my home where I lived, and the one in the middle is my church. And he said, well, what's that other structure? He said, that's the church I used to go to. The rooster, okay. Nasruddin, pays an exotic price and buys a champion's rooster, brings it home, and it services the hens in the barnyard, and then it moves on to the ducks and the geese, and the dog and the cat and the sheep and the goats. And finally, Nasruddin comes out and said, I did not pay such an exorbitant price for you to have you make a chaos of my farm. And besides, if you don't quit this relentless sexual activity, you're going to kill yourself. So he looks out the window the next morning, and the rooster's flat on his back, and he goes out to lecture the corpse one more time. He said, I told you. He said, the buzzard is circling down, and he looks up, and the rooster says, shh, when you're romancing a buzzard, you have to play it their way.
Last poem, sweetie.
Huh?
Last poem. Right here. This one. Okay, and take it nice and slow. Ted's
What?
going to play it with you.
Okay.
Okay?
Good.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was said to the rose that made it open was said to me here in my chest. What was told the cypress that made it strong and straight. What was whispered to the jasmine, so it is what it is. Whatever made sugarcane sweet. Whatever was said to the inhabitants of the town of Chigil in Turkestan that makes them so handsome. Whatever lets the pomegranate flower blush like a human face, that is being said to me now. I blush. Whatever put eloquence in language, that's happening here. The great warehouse doors open, and I fill with gratitude, chewing a piece of sugar cane, in love with the one to whom every that belongs. Thank you.
Beautiful. Let's hear it for Coleman Burks. Woo, 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 woo. Look at this. Feels so special. Allison, I'm going to let you do that, okay? Thank you. You know, Ted, I didn't even ask you if you wanted to be Theodore on the program. We have Theodore Ted Mook here with us tonight. Ted has many, many, many accomplishments. I had the good fortune of meeting him. There's a wonderful cellist named Eugene Friesen, and the last time I saw Marie, in fact, she and Coleman, I forget where we were, but in Vermont, Eugene Friesen was a cellist with the Paul Winter Consort, and might still be. But I was hoping to get Eugene for an event, and he couldn't make it. And I said, well, do you know any other cellists? And he said, oh, I know the best cellist in the world, and I don't think he lives far from you. And that would be Ted Mook. Ted has quite a career. You can read about it in the bio. Recently, he's been teaching music and music theory at the University of Rhode Island. He plays with the Rhode Island Philharmonic. And he has a groovy, groovy home in Wood River Junction, Rhode Island. It's an old church. And he and his wife, Tracy, the what was the sanctuary of the church is now a huge open living space. And Ted has an at-home concert series called Switch Arts. And about every 6 weeks or so, they make some chili and sell these concerts out. It's not really a sale, it's a donation if you want to make it. And often members of the Rhode Island Philharmonic are playing with him. You can Google Ted Mook and find out a little bit more about Switch Arts. From what I know, there's a waiting list to get on the waiting list. But it is something really terrific that happens. So, Ted, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you very much. It's an incredible honor for me to be sandwiched between these incredible poets. And I'm going to keep it quick. I'm going to play 6 little short pieces that I chose deliberately to make a transition from these 2 very different but so heartfelt poets. And so I'll just tell you what they are. I was gonna make a card that had all these pieces, but we had to change the seat on a toilet. It took a really long time. No card. So I'll tell you what they are. The very first piece I'm going to play is a short Ricercari by Domenico Gabrielli. He was the very first composer of solo cello music. This was written in about 1680 or so. And Coleman had asked that I play with him, but I really wanted to hear it. And so this is the spirit of improvisation that should have been with Coleman, but I was too selfish and I wanted to actually hear his voice without corrupting it with my cello. So that's the first piece. The second piece is an even earlier piece by an Italian composer who was born in 1492. You know what that did is, and died in about 1550 or so. And this is a piece actually for the viola da gamba, and it's also a sort of improvisatory piece. Then I'm playing a piece by Coleridge Taylor Perkinson, who was a jazz musician, I think, and he wrote a piece for solo cello in, I think, 1977. This is one movement called the ostinato, the Calvary ostinato. And then, I can't remember, a piece by George Crumb, which is very expressive and explosive. And then a beautiful piece by John Luther Adams called The Wind on Mount McLaren, which gives a sense of the icy and changing wind on the top of Mount McLaren. And then the last piece, to sort of close the circle, is by a young composer, Caroline Shaw, a piece called In Manus Tuus, which is based on a Thomas Tallis motet. So we go back all the way to the 16th century and close the program. So without any blather between, here we go.
Here we go. I know it's warm in here. We're lucky, right? It could be freezing. I'll take this. I'm sorry for those of you who are a little uncomfortable with the heat, but get used to it. It's a beautiful night out, and there's a lot of us in a small, beautiful room. Just waiting for the rest of you to come in. Just keep talking like this. Remember Eddie Murphy? He talked about his mom had the shoe. She'd just throw the shoe. They'd say something wrong. I'm about to throw the shoe at my friend Christine. You're in trouble again, McCarthy. All right. I thanked just about everybody before, so I won't repeat that. I would like to thank the volunteers who I didn't thank before. So Kate Moffett, Nancy Hughes, Melanie Greenhouse, Lou and Catherine often volunteer for us, and of course Chris, and most importantly is Jim Marshall, who's been filming our shows for the last 30 years. I think I'm correct. In 30 years, and we have 6 shows a year, I believe Jim has only missed 1. So I hope it was a really good reason, Jim. We're still trying to recover, but we appreciate everything you do. One final person I want to thank, the fella taking pictures is a friend of mine named Ben Rouse. He's visiting from Athens, Georgia. He's a good friend of Coleman's, and we wouldn't have been able to get Coleman here from Georgia without Ben's help. So he's got Coleman painting these days, and he's also working on a book of probably photographs of Coleman. So he had our permission to photograph. He will not be photographing at all during Marie's reading. But thanks so much, Ben, for all your support. And I think that's it, unless I forget. And then I'll do it after Marie's reading. Don't say anything more? We're done? Really? Okay. What year did I meet you? When did you adopt a nun?
100 years ago.
100 years ago, Marie adopted her 24-year-old daughter, and I was very fortunate. I was running a little art series on Block Island called the Block Island Poetry Project, and I got to meet a nun shortly after she entered Marie's life. So my kids were, 6 and 7, and so that's 22 decades together. Thank you for being here. She said I couldn't say anything else, and Marie, I'm gonna take my orders from you. I don't want to be Marie has 5 published books of poetry, including most recently New and Selected Poems. Brand new, just came out. In my experience, you know, I love poetry. I've been writing it since I was a little kid. I love it so much that I started this writing series that I ran for 15 years, but I get really bored during poetry workshops, so inevitably I'd grab my clipboard and leave the room to go do something like nothing. With the exception of one teacher, and that was Marie Howe. You'll get to hear her poems. Of course, they speak for themselves. I'm so grateful to you as the teacher of poetry that you are, especially for somebody like me that just refuses to sit down and listen to what the person who really has something to teach me is trying to teach me. So a very personal note of gratitude. Thank you for being here with us. Folks, Marie Howe.
Where'd Lisa go? Lisa, standing in the back. I thought for a minute one bossy woman was going to outboss the other, just for 1 minute, but it didn't work. Yeah, no, you won, but it, thank you, Lisa Starr. What can we say? I have to thank Lisa Starr. Such energy, such passion, such care, such poetry, such spirit. Lisa, you could run this place. You could just plug everything into you and light up. Thank you, Christy, for chaperoning me around, and thank you to some friends of mine who've come from far, and I'm so glad to see Meg and Spencer, other people. I can't quite see Terry, and I can't quite see. My eyes are going bad, but anyway, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for your gift of the music. It was extraordinary, really extraordinary. And this Todd's going to send everybody the list this week. I'm joking, he's not. But I want that list. It was gorgeous, so gorgeous. So it's very strange to put together. I write a book about a book every 10 years, it seems, and so it's very strange to put together a new and selected poems. It was emotional, and I couldn't have done it without my friends. Everybody I know, every writer I know, here's Spencer, I'm looking at Spencer, I read his book, he read my book. So many people help, you know, nobody makes anything alone. I just want to make that clear, those of us who do it know it. But so there's so many people who helped me decide what to go in here. But I want to read some of the new poems to you, and then maybe a couple old ones, and then maybe a new one or two. How's that sound? Good. So this begins with a poem called Prologue. Can you all hear me okay? A little louder. Yes, a little louder? How's that? Better? A little louder? Here comes Christy to help.
Let me help you.
Oh,
Let's try that.
thank you. It's far farther away. There we go. How's that? That's better. Ooh, okay. Thank you, Christy. So this is a poem called Prologue. In the middle of my life, just past the middle, walking along the street with our little dog Jack on a leash. Okay, just past the late middle. In what some might call early old age, on a street crowded with children and tourists, my father dead, my mother dead, my young husband gone from me and grown older, a father, a husband now to someone else. Jason dead, John dead, Jane and Stanley and Lucy and Lucy and Billy and Tony, and now Richard dead. I came to the edge, and I did not know the way. I might have to get my glasses. Thank you. Thanks, Susan. thanks. So, I'm sure some of you know what I mean. Where you know, there's so many people we can't live without who are no longer here. And that was the beginning of my list. And it's such a miracle to be here at all, isn't it? To be here right now together in this wonderful room with the light doing what it's doing out the windows. And it's extraordinary to be here. I think just to celebrate that, I'm going to read a poem from What the Living Do. My brother John, I have come from a large family. There's 9 children in my family. I was the oldest girl of the 9. And my brother John, who was the second youngest, died after living with the AIDS virus in the late 80s. And he was such a dear friend and a teacher to me. So just to celebrate the nowness of right now, I'd like to read The Gate. I had no idea that the gate I would step through to finally enter this world would be the space my brother's body made. He was a little taller than me, a young man, but grown, himself by then, done at 28, having folded every sheet, rinsed every glass he would ever rinse under the cold and running water. This is what you have been waiting for, he used to say to me. And I would say, what? And he would say, this, holding up my cheese and mustard sandwich. And I would say, what? And he would say, this, sort of looking around. Postscript. What we did to the earth, we did to our daughters, one after the other. What we did to the trees, we did to our elders, stacked in their wheelchairs by the lunchroom door. What we did to our daughters, we did to our sons, calling out for their mothers. What we did to the trees, what we did to the earth, we did to our sons, to our daughters. What we did to the cow, to the pig, to the lamb, we did to the earth, butchered and milked it. Few of us knew what the bird calls meant or what the fires were saying. We took of earth and took and took, and the earth seemed not to mind, until one of our daughters shouted, "It was right in front of you, right in front of your eyes, and you didn't see." The air turned red. The ocean grew teeth. Reincarnation. So when we were all yelling our dog names out, mine is Jack. Reincarnation. Sometimes when I look at our dog Jack, I think he might be my radical American history professor. Come back to make amends. He gazes at me so sorrowfully. "What is it, Jack?" I say. "Why do you look like that?" But Jack doesn't answer. He lies down and rests his head on his paws. Black hair covered nearly all of that man's body, thick under his blue Oxford shirt when I put my hand there. Perhaps that accounted for the bow tie, the pipe, the tweed cap. This time, I can teach him to sit and to stay. "Stay," I say to Jack, who looks at the treat in my hand and then at me and at the treat and then at me, and he stays. "Come," I say to Jack. But Jack does not always come. Sometimes he sits and looks at me for a long time, as when my professor would lean back in his chair, draw on his pipe, and gaze at me. But when I hold a treat, Jack comes, and I remember how the professor would lick dripping honey from the jar, lick peanut butter from the knife. A little stubborn, our dog Jack, shy, we thought, until the morning my daughter jumped on my bed and Jack sprang at her growling, and the next morning when he rushed towards her growling and bit her skirt and tore it and bit her and broke her skin, and when I went to collar him, bit me, snarling and bit and bit. That's when I was pretty sure he was my history professor. The vet said this happens more often than you'd imagine. He must always be tethered, she said, until he can be trusted. He must learn that you and your daughter come first. And no more couch. And no more sleeping in the bed with you, Mama. Not ever. I finally left him. So late at night, it was nearly dawn. Picking up my boots by the door, stepping down the 2 flights, then running towards the car. What can I say? Jack may be my American history professor come back after all these years to make amends, or Jack may be actually himself a dog. Another theory of time. So I tell my daughter, we are eating dinner, reading through the book of stories. I'm worried about Jason. If I seem distracted, that's what's on my mind. And she says, take it out of your mind. Then dips and eats a dumpling and says, but don't take out Jason. And this morning at the deli I say, I'm grumpy because it's the first day of school and I'm thinking of so many things. And she says, take them out. And I say, how do I do that? And she says, think about now. I bite into my egg and cheese on a sesame bagel, and it is good. It is. Although it does bother me how she always wants to sit at the tiny deli counter so near the garbage bins, eating meatballs for breakfast. Then she says, I can't remember the future or the past. The local high school girls order iced coffee and whole wheat bagels. My girl eats her meatballs. And I stare past the cutouts of ham and turkey taped to the window and think about the moment I want so much to leave. How small it is sometimes, this now. How constricting, me with my bad teeth and aging elbows, as person after person tosses the trash inches behind my back before walking out the open door. My daughter, as people know who write, my daughter shows up a lot. She would say Jack shows up more, our daughter. I don't know if anybody else, when someone says, oh, do you have pictures of your daughter? I go, yeah, wait, somewhere. They're here somewhere on my phone, but all I have is Jack. She's like, Mom, I told you. But I want to read a little poem that she's another hero of. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. It's called Hurry. I really read this about 2 weeks ago. One of those pieces of information that crush you as a parent, where it said that people in their youth, like now in their 20s, people who experience a lot of anxiety were hurried as children. Right? I just hear them, don't believe it. Hurry. We stop at the dry cleaners and the grocery store and the gas station and the green market and hurry up, honey, I say. Hurry. As she runs along 2 or 3 steps behind me, her blue jacket unzipped and her socks rolled down. Where do I want her to hurry to? To her grave? To mine? where one day she might stand all grown. Today, when all the errands are finally done, I say to her, honey, I'm sorry I keep saying hurry. You walk ahead of me. You be the mother. And hurry up, she says, over her shoulder, looking back at me laughing. Hurry up now, darling, she says. Hurry, hurry, taking the house keys from my hands. The saw, the drill. There's always a chainsaw somewhere, the high whine of a drill. Somebody building something or tearing it down, fastening metal to metal. When did wood give way to iron and then to plastic? Almost everywhere, the sound of the human will, the bluster of engine, the grind of a blade, the wheel, hammering, construction, repair. Someone nailed to a cross, someone leashed, lashed, someone hung from a scaffold. Listen, the squeak of the rope, the hammering. Kill him with his own gun, one woman shouted. Kill him with his own gun. What have we made? What are we making? And who or what made us that we should make such things as we do and did? We grow smaller, we break things, then turn to each other and beg for what no human can give. So during the pandemic, this poem, I've been teaching, I've been learning eco-poetics with my students, which is trying to move off from the center of the poem and letting the living world move in. And of course, during the pandemic, many of us, heard birdsong in New York City for the first time in a long time, really loudly in the morning and all during the day. And it was on, anybody who was there remembered, probably in many cities, but I happened to be in New York, and, sirens and birds. That's what I heard all day. And so this voice came to me, and this poem is called What the Earth Seemed to Say in 2020. Do you still believe in borders? Birds soar over your maps and walls and always have. You might have watched how the smoke from your own fires traveled on wind you couldn't see, wafting over the valley and up and over the hills and over the next valley and the next hill. Did you not hear the animals howl and sing? Or hear the silence of the animals no longer howling? Now you know what it is to be afraid. You think this is a dream? It is not a dream. You think this is a theoretical question? What do you love more than what you imagine is your singular life? The water grows clearer, the swans settle and float there. Are you willing to take your place in the forest again? To become loam and bark? To be a leaf falling from a great height? To be the worm who eats the leaf and the bird who eats the worm? Look at the sky. Are you willing to be the sky again? You think this lesson is too hard for you. You want this time out to end. You want to go to the movies as before, to sit and eat with your friends. It can end now, but not in the way you imagine. You know, the mind that has been talking to you for so long, the mind that can explain everything. Don't listen. You were once a citizen of the country called I Don't Know. Remember the boat that brought you there? It was your body. Climb in. So speaking about bodies, you know how now, I was rereading Marshall McLuhan the other day, Let's hear it from Marshall. Marshall McLuhan actually came to our house for dinner one night in 1966. Really? I mean, it's like a Woody Allen movie, right? When he pulls them out of the movie line. And I was rereading Understanding Media, and of course he was, prescient isn't even the word. He saw it all. He saw that the medium is the message that, a car isn't just a fast horse. Anyway, he was talking about the moment electricity occurred and how it became, something for the first time became instant and large. Anyway, I was been thinking about this term called angelization, which is we now move through time and space without our bodies. Which means we can do a whole lot of stuff we wouldn't have done if our bodies were with us, right? We won't even mention the warfare that we can do, but we constantly move, on every computer, with telephones. We don't bring our bodies with us anymore. And maybe some of you in this room know what it's like to have loved in your youth someone who is very elusive. No, you don't. So I got a letter from one of these elusive people, like just a couple of years ago, 50 years later. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Sorry, I don't know, I'm drifting. But anyway, I was thinking about letters. And you wrote about letters in your book. This is Spencer Reese. He just came out with a book called Acts, such an amazing book. And an Episcopal priest and poet.
I love you, Marie.
But he was talking about letter writers and the last of the letter writers. So anyway, for those of us who remember, this is a celebration of the letter, 1968. That he wrote it with his hand and folded the paper and slipped it into the envelope and sealed it with his tongue and pressed it closed so I might open it with my fingers. That he brought it to the box and slipped it through the slot so that it might be carried through time and weather to where I waited on the front porch step. We knew how to wait then. It was what life was, much of it. So when the mailman came up the walk and didn't have it, he might have it the next day or the next, when it bore the mark of his hand who had written my name, so I might open it and read it again, and then again, and look at the envelope he had sealed and pressed my mouth to where his mouth had been. Here's another Jack and the Moon. After driving home through the forest, I curled into bed to sleep, but Jack wouldn't let me. He whined and barked, high-pitched barks I'd not heard before. No, I said from under the blanket, no. Still he barked and paced and barked, no, Jack. Then yelped, strange high yelps, followed by low growls, as if he might, by the mere scope and scale of his pleading, persuade me, until I did finally throw off the covers and open the front door, through which he hurried, not to sniff or pee, but to sit on the lawn, his back to me, a small white dog facing the moon. Lit by a light so bright, I could read these words within it. And when I went to fetch him, he scooted farther away to sit tucked into himself, gazing into the flooded distance. A very cold night. I stood a while at the open door, calling, Jack, Jack, come now, willful, stubborn dog. And when he didn't come, I curled up on the couch, wrapped in a shawl, and dozed for I don't know how long, then woke, went again to the front door, and said quietly, "Jack." It was then he turned and came in, cold and calm, soaked with the moon. I don't know if anybody here reads what used to be called Brain Pickings. It's now Marginalium by Maria Popova. It's a sort of astonishing curated newsletter of ideas and literature. And every year she presents an event called The Universe in Verse, and she asks scientists and poets to come together and to read poems about science. I don't really do that, but at that point in my life, I was trying to understand the expanding universe and really trying to understand the Big Bang. Hawking's, what we saw through the Hubble, that all the galaxies are moving far away from each other. And so this notion of the singularity, this hyper-dense, tiny matter that blew up into everything that is, all of us, everything, everything. It's hard to believe. I ended up trying to write this poem, and it's called The Singularity. There's also a new way people are using that word. You probably, people here know, the singularity, the techie version, right? Do you know about this? The tech people refer to the singularity now as when all the computers come together and they connect and they become one mind, which is going to happen probably sooner than we think. But that's not the singularity. We don't have to worry about that yet. But this is about the Big Bang. How many people here believe in the Big Bang? Believe that it occurred? It's an astonishing thing to imagine, isn't it? To imagine it. It's when this tiny, dense material somehow, Thomas Aquinas would say, what was the uncaused cause? We don't know, but something ignited this explosion. Okay, the singularity. After Stephen Hawking had just died. Do you sometimes want to wake up to the singularity we once were? So compact, nobody needed a bed, or food, or money. Nobody hiding in the school bathroom, or home alone, pulling open the drawer where the pills are kept. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Remember? There was no nature, no them, no tests to determine if the elephant grieves her calf or if the coral reef feels pain. Trashed oceans don't speak English or Farsi or French. Would that we could wake up to what we were when we were ocean. And before that, to when sky was earth, and animal was energy, and rock was liquid, and stars were space, and space was not at all, nothing. Before we came to believe humans were so important, before this awful loneliness. Can molecules recall it? What once was before anything happened? No I, no we, no one, no was, no verb, no noun, only a tiny dot, brimming with is, all, everything, home. And I think I'll end with this poem called Hymn. I want to plead with you to do something and today and tomorrow and the next day and the next, and that is to try to imagine the future we actually want. Because the movies are imagining it for us, and the world is being destroyed over and over again. You know, I've seen New York destroyed. How many times have you seen New York destroyed in the movies? Statue of Liberty flooded. And so I really do believe, as with Blake, that with William Blake, I mean, that what is now proved was once only imagined. So what if we imagined the utterly impossible, unreasonable, foolish thing that we really imagine, work at it, picture it, picture it, picture it, every day, the world we really want to live in? Who's game? 3 people, 4, 5, 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Did you hear me? Do you understand? I know it's not, it's painful. I know, it's painful because you feel, what are you guys saying?
She says she does it all the time.
Oh, good. Well, good. This corner's taken care of. So, here's a poem called Hymn, and it's a hymn like a sacred song hymn, you know, and it's a dream. It's well, you'll see, hymn. It began as an almost inaudible hum, low and long for the solar winds and the far dim galaxies. A hymn growing louder for the moon and the sun. A song without words for the snow falling, for snow, conceiving rain, the rivers rushing without shame, the hum turning again higher into a riff of ridges, peaks hard as consonants, summits and praise. I'm coughing now, excuse me. Sorry, Coleman, it's just, I think I'll start again. A hymn growing louder for the moon and the sun, a song without words for the snow falling, for snow, conceiving rain, the rivers rushing without shame, a hum turning again higher into a riff of ridges, peaks hard as consonants, summits and praise for the rocky faults and crust and crevices, then down to the roots and rocks and burrows, the lake's skittery surfaces, wells, oceans, breaking waves, the salt deep, the warm bodies moving within it, the cold deep, the deep underneath gleaming. Some of us rising as the planet turned into dawn, some lying down as it turned into dark. As each of us rested, another woke, standing among the cast-off cartons and automobiles. We left the factories and stood in the parking lots, left the subways and stood on the sidewalks, in the bright offices, in the cluttered yards, in the farmed fields, in the mud of the shanty towns, breaking into harmonies we'd not known possible, finding the chords as we found our true place, singing in a million keys the human hymn of praise for every something else there is and ever was and will be. The song growing louder and rising. Listen. I too believed it was a dream.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Coleman. Thank you, Ted. Thanks to each one of you for being here. We appreciate you supporting us. Our fall dates are in the program. A little hint about the fall season. Our November show will feature Margaret Gibson, reading from a soon-to-be-published, wildly creative book. So thanks for being here with us. We've got books. We're gonna find a spot for Marie to sign some books. If anybody else has a book for Coleman that they'd like to sign. And I can't thank you enough for being here to support us and celebrate such a huge evening for us. How about us? 30 years old. Thank you.